Hey, what's happening, everybody? Meister here, and welcome back to City Skylines 1. I told you I was not going to drop the game after the release of City Skylines 2, and here we are, another Rockport episode. In today's episode, we're going to be working on something pretty cool. So, as you noticed, I already laid down all of these streets here. This is going to be a brand new neighborhood, okay? And it's going to be a pretty diverse neighborhood at that, because it's gonna feature a lot of different levels of wealth. Okay, so on the lower echelons of this neighborhood near the train tracks is going to be much more middle class, you know, average homes. Again, I'm gonna be using a lot of these European style homes. I really like them. I find that they do resemble homes in New Zealand quite a bit, so there's gonna be a lot of that. But as we move up farther into the mountains, that's where you'll find some nice posh houses, kind of what you would find in the Hollywood Hills. But that's not all that we're going to be focusing in this episode. I'm also going to get into a very large, I guess we could call it national park, a bit later in the episode, that is going to encompass the entire mountain range in the area. So yeah, somewhat of a pretty interesting episode, and it's great to be playing City Skylines 1. I did, however, record this a couple of days ago before the official release of City Skylines 2, and at the time of producing this video, I hadn't picked up City Skylines 1 in a little bit, but rest assured, guys, I'm still going to be delivering some Rockport content. I know you guys enjoy it. And you know what? City Skylines 2 is still a fantastic game. Even with the new launch of City Skylines 2, you know, I think I said this in an older video. City Skylines 1 has like 8 years worth of DLC and mods and all sorts of content. So of course it's going to be a great game forever, right? And until all of the performance issues get ironed out in City Skylines 2, I don't think I'm going to be progressing too quickly. I don't want to get into like a major metropolis and find myself running the game at like 20 FPS. So I'm pretty confident in the developers of City Skylines 2 to iron out all those performance issues. And who knows, you may be watching this in a few months' time and those issues are no longer existent. So who knows? But anyways, City Skylines 1 is still a fantastic city builder. But let me know down in the comments, guys. I'm just curious. Have you purchased City Skylines 2? And if so, are you enjoying it so far? Let me know down in the comments what you think. Anyways, back to the game. Here you're going to see me starting to plop down some of the more posh homes up against the mountains here. And a lot, like I said, a lot of the extremities of this neighborhood adjacent to the mountains are all going to be like these massive villas and huge mansions. As you would expect, right? Everybody wants a nice ocean view, a nice view of downtown. And the mountains are kind of, they offer some privacy. So this is a really nice neighborhood for the more well-off citizens of Rockport. And I know, guys, I've been saying this forever, but I gotta get into some public transportation. The city right now is like literally grinded to a halt. All of the roads are red. Traffic is abysmal everywhere. Like, you know, we're at almost 30,000 people now in the city, and I have zero public transportation, right? So that's a huge problem. So next episode, I promise you, that's what I'm getting into. The reason why I'm not getting into that this episode was I kind of felt like finishing the peninsula before starting public transportation. So that means that after the end of this episode, the entire downtown peninsula will be complete. And at that point, it's going to set a really good base for a proper public transportation system, right? So rather than me having to revisit the bus network and whatever else again for a number of episodes, I thought it would, like, content-wise, editing-wise, it's just a little bit easier if I just build out the city a fair amount and then spend an entire episode or two just plowing through all of the city's public transportation. So right now we're looking at two different systems that are going to be implemented into the city. The first one is a bus network, and with the amount of roads that are in the city and all of the different neighborhoods, it sets a good foundation for us to build a nice bus network. There's going to be multiple lines. It's going to be a pretty comprehensive system. And the second element of the public transportation system is the metro network. So of course, all the lines and all the stations are plopped right now. The only thing that's missing are the actual train lines, and that'll pretty much do it. And I guess there's going to be some trains as well. You know, I have the major train station that leads into the city. I could probably maybe place some other train stations around town eventually, and have some intra-city train lines as well. But that's not a huge priority for me. It's mostly bus networks and the metro network. And eventually I'd like to start getting into some ferries as well. You know, Rockport is a pretty water heavy city. There's a lot of bays and stuff everywhere. So I think we might be able to use a couple of maybe some little ferry stops or whatnot. Of course, I'm trying to make Rockport the best city in the world to live in, so it has to be super accessible. And I built a nice pedestrian bridge over the rail lines here. It's quite a span, right? There's like 8 lengths of track, well, probably at 10 at its widest point. So a pedestrian path is definitely a nice addition to this area. Makes it a little less car dependent. Because this is pretty close to downtown, right? Like all of these neighborhoods that I've built so far, they could almost be considered an extension of downtown. So naturally, they need to be pretty walkable, pretty accessible, easy to get around. You know, public transportation will help with that too in a little bit. But definitely once we start to get on the outskirts of the city, public transportation is sort of going to become less and less reliable as it would be in any normal city. I'm just assuming at this point, right? But there's going to be less options, that's for sure. I'm still trying to stick to, I'm still trying to make this realistic, you know, even though I'm playing with unlimited money and playing in a creative mode. I still want this to function as a real city. And most cities in the world, even the cities with the best public transportation networks, you know, as you move out into the suburbs, they're a little less available than downtown. So here you can see that I just copy pasted this, well, I didn't copy, I moved this helicopter depot, this fire helicopter depot, to protect against forest fires that occur like every 10 seconds in the mountains if I don't have it plopped down. You know, there's just such a massive density of trees that fires were just constantly sprawling up and burning down half the neighborhood. So I had to do something. So I temporarily plopped down this helicopter depot on the outskirts of town. But I find that this location right here is pretty good, near the mountains. So if ever there is a fire in one of these neighborhoods, at least the helicopters don't have to go very far to extinguish the flames. So anyways, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for the neighborhood portion of this episode. Now I'm going to start to move into the national park. So for this national park, it's not going to be too extravagant. It's mostly going to be sort of like a nature reserve / hiking park. I'm just going to run a bunch of trails through here and just, you know, fill in some of this space. And as you can see here, I finally gave up on that highway arch bridge. It was really cool, but unfortunately it was just not functional, and I was never going to be able to get it to look nice if I were to get it functional. So I opted for this 6-lane bridge. It's like much wider than I would have liked it to be, but I think look-wise, it's the best option in this case. It looks like a kind of historic multiple arch bridge, but Yeah, I still think it looks pretty cool. And this is pretty much an attraction in itself, or at least it would be in real life. Imagine a road pretty much just straddling the knife's edge of a mountain, right? Just the peak from one end to the other. I imagine the views here would be pretty spectacular if this was in real life. So it's almost like a mini version of the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina. Pretty amazing road, by the way. I've been on it once. Spectacular views, especially during the fall with all the leaves changing color. It's awesome. Unfortunately, this is not really going to attract tourists per se. There's no real way of attracting tourists based on just regular roads running through an area. But at least if I can include some of the nature park buildings along this road, it's going to attract tourists to the region. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So this is, like I said, this is going to be a national park, and as a result, I'm actually going to make this into a nature park in the game. So it's going to attract tourists, it's going to raise land value, it's going to do all sorts of good things for the areas around the park. I know a lot of you mentioned that you like these windmills over here on the peak of the mountain, but unfortunately I have to get rid of them as this is going to be the main entrance into the nature park. So it was pretty much the only suitable land for it. With a little bit of landscaping, I made this nice flat plateau to have just enough room for the main entrance building. Because I want this park to be functional, you know, I want to use the nature reserve park as it's intended, and in order to do that I have to place down a main entrance, and I'm going to place down a bunch of little side entrances wherever I can fit them, just to provide access to the park in different locations. And you'll see a little later on too, I'm going to make access to this park free, because I don't want this to be like an actual national park where you have to pay and there's camping and stuff like that. I want this to be more sort of like the mountains around Hollywood, for example, where there's literally just like hundreds of trails lined around the mountain that you can just go walk up and down. I want it to be more of that style. And I really like this. This is pretty cool. This trail going under this highway. This would probably be a pretty decent hangout spot for all the locals. And rest assured, guys, these power lines are gonna get the boot eventually at one point as well. They were just temporary. I think I ran those in one of the first episodes when I was building the neighborhood over on the other side of the mountains. But yeah, just ignore that for now. And in just a second here, I'm going to wrap up the episode, but I wanted to take a minute to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm glad that you want Rockport to stick around. Honestly, like I said, I'm not done with City Skylines 1 by any means. I'm maybe done playing a Let's Play series, as, you know, Dunswell was a pretty big undertaking, to be honest, and I feel like I've played through the game a number of times now where, you know, I don't want it to get too repetitive. I'd rather play City Skylines 1 in a sort of creative fashion, in you know, to paint a city in this sort of style that I'm doing with Dunswell. So anyway, I'm glad that you're enjoying the series and that you want me to continue. I'll continue this for as long as you guys want me to, or until I get bored of City Skylines 1, which won't be for another while. But anyways, guys, I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate all the support, all the love and support. You guys are awesome. So that'll be it for this episode. Like I said, next episode, I'm going to jump into some public transportation, get that all sorted and figured out. And I think that's going to be a pretty interesting episode. That's actually funny. I say I don't really want to do Let's Plays anymore. That episode is totally going to be in a Let's Play type fashion, because like you can't really talk about public transportation while I'm just rushing through it. So it's probably going to be a couple of episodes in that case, because it's going to take longer than a half an hour to build the city's public transportation network. Anyways, that'll be for next episode. So guys, again, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to drop a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of future uploads. And I will catch you in the next episode. And until then, take care, everyone.